All right. I don't know about you, but I feel like, after hearing that song, I don't really need to preach. Does everyone just want to call it a day? Or is that wonderful? Come on, let's go back. Ron, Amy, Scott, and Jeff, wherever he went. All of them. Thank you so much. All right. We are in the final week of our series on Hosea, and I totally understand that this has been difficult on some people. I totally get that. The relationship series are never easy, and yet they're very, very vital. And we have dove into the marriage relationship in Hosea, what it means, and what it means as far as us. Maybe you're a single person heading down the aisle soon, or maybe you're someone who is planning on one day being married, and you want to know what God has to say about it. You may be someone who is separated. You may be someone who's gone through a divorce. You may be someone who one day just decided to leave. I get that it is very, very difficult, but you have to understand something. You may be in a fantastic, wonderful relationship, but somewhere, someone is going to need help when it comes to this relationship. And God made a covenant with His people. And that covenant was based on this married relationship. That's the intent of it. Just as Christ is to the church, God was to His chosen people, the Israelites. So that is why we have this focus on this relationship and why it is so important. It's why we chose Valentine's Day to start for the relationship series. We're ending it now because it's a leap year, and starting after tomorrow, everything jumps over a day. So we're going to spring eternal, starting with the messages next week. But you have to know this as well. It's not just the married relationships. It's every relationship when it comes to our time with God. So at the end, and possibly throughout as well, I'm going to focus on that relationship, you personally, with God. The marriage relationship is the relationship that was intended. It was a covenant between God and His people. It was a covenant that He had Adam and Eve take. It was meant to be a covenant. It's not a contract. You don't sign anything. Me as the pastor, I sign something. But that covenant relationship is what seals the deal as far as this is a relationship that I want to be honoring to God. And for some of us, we're like, man, I've never felt like it's been honoring to God. I feel like we're at war all the time. And so the focus, where do we take it? We take it to what God is doing in our life. And there's other people who's like, I don't ever want to be a part of that. I don't want anything to do with it. My parents, my grandparents, my uncles, aunts, it's been a train wreck for everyone. And so there's this fear that we have, this commitment that we're going to screw it up. And I'm going to tell you this so that you know. Your past is your past. But each one of us make that decision as to when we're going to give this relationship, this covenant relationship, to God and allow Him to lead it. And so if you're sitting there today and you know that you have put something ahead of your spouse, and it's not God, then it's just a matter of time before you're going to start to have struggles. And that something can be a car, it can be a boat, it can be a plane, it could be a yard, it could be your house, it could be technology, it could be a smartphone, it could be an iPad, it could be whatever it might be that's pulling you away from the most important of all the relationships, which is one, to God, and two, to your spouse. There are just things in our world that get in the way, but you can stop at any time. You can stop at any time and give it to God and have it honoring to Him. Hosea is the example that God gave us. In the minor prophets, he was the first of the minor prophets in the Bible. Chronologically, he is not the first. But his name means salvation. Just as God intended for each of us to have that salvation, He wants us to know that it is possible. So that's why he starts off the books of the minor prophets. And that's where we started. Now, you met a couple last week that started to have a discussion. And Tracy was the first one to share. And after that, we heard from John's side as well. Because in every relationship, there are three parts to the story. There's your side, there's my side, and there's the truth. Think about that again. There's your side, there's my side, and there's the truth. So your side's over here, and my side's over here. Where's the truth? Don't answer that. If you're a wife, you know the truth is right here, right? Okay? If you're a husband, you know the truth is right here, right? Okay? But it's really somewhere in the middle. And sometimes for every story, it leans more towards this side, and sometimes it leans more towards this side. Sometimes it's coming together and it's right in the middle. But there's always the three sides of that story. So we heard Tracy's side. And we heard John's side. Now here's the most amazing thing. Neither Tracy nor John are here today. And the reason they're not here is because after all this took place, after all this happened, after all the struggles, after the accident in which he had the severe brain trauma, after all of this, months and months and years afterward, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so he started yesterday in the first of his radiation treatments. And literally, it's like having weeks and weeks of radiation for one treatment. Instead of having to do it for 40-some days, he's going to have to do it for 5 or 6 because he qualified to be a part of this. But you have to know this. They didn't know about the cancer. They didn't receive the phone call. He hadn't taken any tests yet. They were fighting for everything that they had, and they wanted to have a relationship that was honoring to God. And I'll tell you that even after all this, and all the time that they've been in Chicago, and they've been at the hospitals, and they've been through these treatments, and they've been through all of the different prodding and poking and different tests and all those other kind of things, they have given it all to God because they believe, just as in the name of Hosea, which means salvation, they believe most of all in the name of Jesus, who died for each one of us because he loves us that much. And that's the salvation that they rest in daily. This is the first part of the video, and you're going to see these two coming together. Once again, they're not here today. I ask that you keep them in your prayers, but let's go ahead and watch part 1 of the video today.
Our marriage license should have read, some assembly required. What didn't come in pieces to be assembled somehow fell to pieces. Parts stopped fitting together, and the struggle seemed too great for the strength that we had. Inevitably, something missing. That something was God. The pieces of our life weren't fitting, so we have given everything to Jesus.
Okay, now, when you read this, you read September 9th, 2015, and you read September 15th, 2015. So what's the actual date?
The actual date is not written on here. It's actually written on the back page, and it's September 9th, 2015.
So John's still messing things up. No, but I'm just kidding. We're just messing around. Okay. There was an inherent change that took place starting after that. And so tell me some of the things that took place, because whenever we talk about marriage, people are always like, how do you fix my marriage? How do you fix my marriage? How do you fix my marriage? And in any relationship, it is the devotion. And so what started changing as far as the devotion in a relationship that made the change that affected the devotion in your relationship?
Well, for me, it was living for God first and living for Tracy second and putting myself down the list.
And Tracy, what happened? Because you made a promise to God to live John's way. So what happened that all of a sudden you realized one day that putting John ahead of God was actually something that was causing maybe even a rift within your relationship?
Yeah, it was causing a rift in my relationship with God. And I had to fix that. And I think I told you when all of this happened that I was at the edge of the world, and I didn't know if I was going to fly or if I was going to fall. But I knew God would catch me if I fell. And I went home that night and I prayed. And I realized that I wasn't going to do either. But I had to stop right where I was, and I just had to kneel. And I devoted everything to God. And I put him first.
So pausing for a moment then, you literally hit that pause button by kneeling down before him. And then you both started to do things, as opposed to doing them separately, you started making God moments and mile markers together before God, things that you could measure.
Yeah.
So could you share some of those things that you did?
Well, actually, we started with a prayer request. And we made a list of everywhere that we could think of that we had harmed or hurt one another. Even if it was just unkind words or places we let one another down?
Just things that we have done to each other that husbands and wives shouldn't. And most importantly, that we didn't just apologize to each other, but we apologized to God. I don't think there is a more powerful thing that you can do for somebody else than to pray for them. And to see someone pray for you, if you're not moved by that, I don't think you have a heart.
But we also made a praise list. And we thought back over the length of our marriage of all the places that God blessed us. And we went to those places and thanked God for the blessings that and the grace that He bestowed upon us that we didn't deserve. And thanked Him for those things.
Now, you also, from a physical standpoint, you did some other things. If you could share, there's two things I'd love for you to share if you could. One are the jars,
Yeah.
and when you got together,
Yeah, we
and then
had-
also, well, we'll talk about that one first. So if you want to, let's go ahead and share that first.
We had you come to the house on our, we call it the birth anniversary. And John and I celebrate a birthday on the same day. We were born on the same day. And that's also our wedding anniversary. We had you come over and we had you say a blessing on our home and a blessing on our land and a blessing on our marriage. And we took land from our home and put them in mason jars. And we took buckeyes and we planted buckeyes into these mason jars. And we are trying to germinate and grow them and hoping that we can take these trees. And then next year on the birth anniversary, we would like to have a celebration and plant the trees on our property.
Second thing, which kind of ties into the first part of it, but is very, because this was the first part, but then the other thing that you did, John, if you could speak to this, is that a famous movie that was out here recently was The War Room. But before The War Room came out, you had actually decided to dedicate not just your house, but also a specific area within the house when it comes to prayer. So could you discuss that a little bit?
Yes, we have an office at our house, just off our bedroom. And we decided that we would take that place and make it a place where we would pray for one another. When things were tough, when we didn't understand, or when we just needed guidance. So that we had a place in our house for that to happen. And it's worked out very well.
We kind of use it as a tracker. We keep track of our prayers and our answered prayers and kind of what's going on in our spiritual life.
Okay, I'm going to take.
All right, that's part one. Now, did you notice at the beginning that both of them got up from the couch and then came to the middle? So the first time you saw the videos last week, while she was speaking, husband was sitting there. While he was speaking, his wife was sitting there. So everything they shared, they literally were sharing in front of one another, and then they came together, because we're not pulling punches. We're not hiding stuff. If you're in a relationship, and you're in a married relationship, and you have placed that covenant before God, it is not 50-50. It's 100-100. And if someone's putting in 99.9, you're going to have struggles. If someone's putting in 90, you're going to have struggles. And when they say, hey, give 110%, you can't give 110%. You can only give 100. That's it. That's the maximum. But you have to give the maximum at all times. And this is very important. If you're a parent right now, and you're looking at your daughter or your son, and you're like, man, they're giving 100% to it. Man, I see the other person giving 100%. That should be a red flag for you. If you're wondering, why isn't these two stay together? I don't get it, because they're giving and giving, and that person is just taking and taking. That's not the 100-100 we're talking about. I don't give 100 so that they can take 100. I give 100, she gives 100. You give 100, your spouse gives 100. If it's a fiance, one fiance gives 100, the other fiance gives 100. Because when God gave, He gave His one and only Son. What percentage did He give to you? Are you giving that 100 back to him? Are you giving that 100 back to him in the form of your spouse and lifting him or her up? Are you giving 100% back in that person that you're hoping to walk down the aisle with, lifting him or her up? It's a 100 gift every single day. And if you're someone that has been abandoned, if you're someone that someone has left you, if you're someone that, man, you've been through a divorce, you've been through a separation, you're not feeling worthy, you're going to find, just as God's word says, draw close to me and I will draw close to you. So when you draw close to God, who's already given that 100%, it's your turn now to give that 100. And for that person that abandoned you, and that person that left you, and that person that said, I'm finished, and that person that gave up, you can't control them, and you never could have anyway. The only thing that you can control is you. And it starts by giving it first completely to God. Watch what Hosea had to go through. Chapter 3 in Hosea. The Lord said to me, this is God and Hosea having a discussion. And this is called, in my Bible, it says Hosea's reconciliation with his wife. The Lord said to me, go show your love your wife again, though she is loved by another and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another and is an adulteress. Now listen, God's saying to Hosea, go. And in this form and in God's word, if there is adultery, if there is abuse, if there is abandonment, that's the triple A's, then the person has the quote-unquote right to go, correct? But they also have the right to stay. They also have the right to fight through it. They also have the right to turn it over completely to God. Once again, 100, but it's got to be 100. And so when God turns to Hosea and says, listen, go back to your prostitute, adulterous wife and take her, go. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, no. Who else is with me? We have 3 kids now. I don't even know if any of them are mine. That one's got a different color hair. That one's skin is different than mine. And that one, there's no way. Blonde hair, blue eyes, I'm dark, I have no idea what's going on here. That one I might give him, might be mine. This is Hosea's life right now. He has no clue if any of these children are his, but he's pretty sure that they are not. And God's word shows us that at least one of them for sure are not his. It said the first child bore him a son. We're going to give them that one. The second one, we're not quite sure. The third one, just go name that kid. And so now God's saying, go to this girl and bring her back and marry her. And I got to be honest with you. I don't think I could do it. I'm not strong enough. I think I'd have to say no. But at the same time, I also know that God puts in our heart that through Him all things are possible, and through His strength, not our strength, there is nothing that we can't accomplish if we truly give it to Him. And when He says to me, if you draw close to me, I will draw close to you, can I trust Him enough to believe in that? Because that's what Hosea did. And when he said go, Hosea listened. Verse 2 says, so I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethek of barley. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethek of barley. That means that he went down to the local market. He went down to the flea market. He went down to the auction, whatever it may be. And there's his wife, who's obviously now a prostitute, which means she not only is having marriage relationships outside of her marriage, she's having relationships outside her marriage, she's receiving money for it. Some people call this the oldest of all professions, and that's not true. The oldest of all professions is farming. God called us to work the land first. We did this on our own. We chose this on our own. We started paying for this on our own. And so this young lady has already made the decision that this is the step that I'm going to take. Remember something. Homer had to go to her dad to have this arranged. So there was an agreement. And it was made between dad and son-in-law. Soon-to-be son-in-law. She had no say in any of it. She just finds out, oh, by the way, you're now going to be married. How does that make her feel? I mean, I didn't choose him. There was no courting. I'm not even attracted to him. And now, Dad, the person that I look to the most, the person that I trust the most, the person that I love the most, you're choosing this guy to replace you? That's painful. Would it be painful for Gomer? Hey, dads, one day, your little girl, one day, your baby girl is going to pick someone to replace you. Are you giving 100% to that daughter of yours right now? Are you showing her the love of the Lord? When they see you, do they look back and go, I can't help but see the reflection of God? Because I know girls over time that their dads just decided, I'm just going to get up and leave. And they're wonderful. They have a heart of gold. But they had to go it alone because some dad chose to, you know what, I'm just going to head out. I don't really need to do this anymore. I'm going to call it a midlife crisis. I'm going to call it, I need to go out and sow my oats. I need to just run. I didn't really ever want to be tied down. I'm not really this whole commitment thing, whatever it may be. And there's a little girl whose heart has been broken because she looked to you. And so when she finds that elsewhere, who's to blame? Let's blame her. Guys, we need to take the roles of our daughters very, very seriously. We need to spend time with them. We need to listen to their stories. We need to know that it's okay for them to have that drama. Because once they feel rejected from us, they're going to find that somewhere else. And when they are special, you need to let them know that they're special. And for those of you right now that are brothers and have sisters, know this, you're responsible as well. Because just as a dad to his son, hey, he's my boy, and he plays ball, and he does all these other things that are going on, you want to teach them to respect those young ladies. But if they're not respecting your daughter, they're not treating her with kind words, they're rejecting her right there, that young girl is going to go elsewhere to find what it is that she is missing. And that's why Gomer ended up where Gomer ended up. Guys, we are meant to be the spiritual leaders in our homes. Dads, we should be teaching our sons that. Dads, we should be showing our daughters that. Sons, you'd be preparing now to do that for someone down the road. And that preparation may start with your little sister or your big sister or just your twin sister even. You may be the only example that they have. And guys, I believe that God would turn to you and say, go and take care of her. Go and love her. Go and be there for her. Go and lift her up. And when you have that 100 relationship with God, He will point you to your spouse, your wife, the one that you have that covenant relationship with, and then to your children. And then to everyone that comes in contact with them. This is serious stuff. God meant for it to be serious. But He also meant for it to be loving. Because just as Gomer has been rejected by Dad, without even realizing it, maybe, she's also been rejected by this Hosea because she didn't choose him. As a believer, you chose God. But remember something, God also chose you. He chose Israel as His chosen people. And if you're not a Jew, then you are a Gentile. And anyone can come to know God. Anyone. If you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling abandoned, if you're feeling rejected, all of those feelings that are pouring through you, God knows all of them. The Bible talks about it like this. It talks about a kindness that God has for each one of us in Luke chapter 6. A kindness that He has for all of us. For the wicked, for the ungrateful. And I started thinking about that and I thought, you know what? I can't believe how many times that I walk around that I'm ungrateful. I can't believe how many times that people bring things to me that I just want to say to them, are you being ungrateful? And sometimes I do. I'm someone who suffered from anxiety, and now the anxious is gone. I'm not personally, but there's people like that. I'm someone who suffered from depression, and now that depression is gone. Do I stop for a second and say, man, God, I'm so grateful for the fact that you have taken that away? Or do I just go on about my day? See, the word kindness in that verse, the way it was written, it was actually intended to begin with food. And so when people would have their food, they would say, this is really good food, and at the same time, it does something special for me. There's health in it. There's growth in it. And we don't think about that, do we? And Easter, we're all going to eat a ham, right? It's going to be the best ham ever. Has anyone ever stopped and said, man, this is some really kind ham? We don't say that, right? Thanksgiving, man, that's a kind turkey. We killed it, but it's a kind turkey. We don't think about that kindness. But it's meant to not only nourish us, but it's also meant to bring us health. That's the kind of kindness that God has for each one of us. But in our everyday walk, we are so ungrateful we don't even realize it. And in every relationship God has set aside for you in your life, it is so easy to take it for granted, starting here. And many times with our spouses, and then to our kids. Yet that life is so vital in God's eyes. Is it vital in ours? So here's Gomer, just bought back by Hosea for 15 shekels. By the way, that's half the price of a slave. And a homer and a lethek of barley, that's half the price of a cow. So a half a side of beef. So if you put those together, basically she's half a slave and half a piece of meat. This is where she's at in her life. This is where we spiral sometimes in relationships. This is where we get so beat up and so beat down with what the world wants us to do and what the world has done to us, and it feels like there's no way out. And all of a sudden, someone shows such a love that it makes such a difference in our world and we don't even realize it. This man that my dad made me marry has come back. This man whose name means salvation, and he's going to save me. And he's going to save me because God loves him so much that he's going to pour that love back into me. The next verse says, then I told her, so they're having a one-on-one conversation now. You are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will live with you, with any man, and that includes him. Because the very thing that took everything away from our relationship, we're just going to stop. And we're going to give this to God. And we're going to live before the Lord as it was intended. Here's part 2 of what John and Tracy have to say as we continue on this subject.
Okay, I'm going to take you back to the book. Because in the first...
Right with the purpose.
So they right with the purpose, absolutely. You guys journal these things, you track the prayers, you track the things that you shared to God, and then the things that are coming back. So the first sentence in that book, it talks about how there is some assembly required. So is the assembly altogether now, or is that something that at any point in any marriage you still continue to assemble things?
You have to continue to assemble things. It never is a finished product. And this is a continually changing, living thing. And you're always going to have things happen that are going to be in conflict with that perfect picture of what you feel life should be. And life's going to throw you curveballs. And the first thing you have to do is you have to take it to God and find out what you're supposed to do with it. Let him help you figure out. And if it's too much for you to carry, give it to him to carry for you.
So you're continuing to assemble, continuing to pray, you're continuing to mark the things that are going on. You guys have had some life-changing events that have taken place here for various reasons, including new little ones that have now joined the family as well. Job choices, health choices, all these things have taken place. So life still comes at you. And there are times that you still have struggles and you still have strife. But that devotion from one to another, when you felt like running, and you felt like cashing in, and you said, I'm done, talk about how that has changed based on the choices that you've made before God.
One of the biggest things is that I know that Tracy isn't my adversary. In fact, she's my greatest ally. She's the person I turn to after I turn to God. She's the person I tell my secrets to. She's the person I trust those things with that I'm unsure of. And she has become more than just my wife. Because we were born on the same day, the same year, Tracy and I have always told one another that we are soulmates. And I believe that with everything that I am now.
That'd be very difficult for young couples or single people to go out and find someone born on the same date, the same, right? I mean, that's difficult. So that is another marker that God gives. But what would be some advice that you would give to either younger couples, couples that are going through the same struggles maybe that you went through for a while, or even single people that are, I want to have that loving relationship before the Lord? What would be some things that you would want to tell them?
The first thing is never put anyone above God. That is the biggest mistake. Always put God first.
God commands us to do everything in love. And if you're doing something and it's not being done in love, then stop doing it.
When things happen and you're hurting, this is going to seem kind of odd, but you're going to have to take those feelings of pain and kind of wrap them up and set them aside for just a second and take a look at the other person and look at their pain and look at why they're doing what they're doing. The people you love, the people that you're with, the people that you marry, that you choose to be with, not your brothers and sisters or your parents, but the people you choose to be with. They don't hurt you because they want to hurt you. There's a reason why we act out against people that we love. So if you can just for 1 second put aside your own pain to look and see why they're doing the things that they're doing and why they're hurting, you can find common ground in the middle.
The one thing we talk about a lot here at the church is for the people that we want to have in our everyday lives are people that love the Lord, people that love us no matter what, people that have our best interests at heart. Could you just share for a little bit about relationships that came about after everything seemed like it was falling apart, and the people that once you started recognizing God, that you started finding these people within your lives that could lift you up and to help to take your relationship even further with Him?
Well, for me, it started with joining the men's group on Thursday nights. And we always want to think that our lives are unique, and nobody can understand what we've been through, that nobody knows our pain, that nobody struggles with the things that we struggle with. And the truth is, there are a lot of people who have done the same things. And even though our struggles may be different, they still know pain. So, joining the men's group was an opportunity for me to be honest with other men who were having struggles as well, that were seeking God, and just being able to share that with someone else just being able to hear that they've been through what you've been through, and knowing that A, there's another side, and B, God will get you through it, helps to ease the pain. It's been a great benefit. And there are older gentlemen, me among them. There are younger men in the group. There's life experience and understanding. And because they're Christian, that everything is done in love. We can fight at each other. We don't judge each other. And we look out for one another.
We had a women's group in the fall. It was wonderful to be surrounded by women of faith, again, who helped lift me back up. They helped me realize that the past is the past and that God is the future. And He helps us continue to move forward in love. And if you are going to continue moving forward, you have to surround yourself with people who are like minds.
Okay, I'm going to take it.
The first time that John went to the men's group was in the summer, and normally in the summer the guys don't go together, and the ladies take off as well. It's time to refresh, and everyone's busy during the summer, all those other kind of things. They normally go in the fall and they go in the spring. One of the gentlemen decided he wanted to keep the group going, so it just happened that there was a week that week, so I took him there, and I feared for him at that time. I feared for him because I worried about him personally. I didn't know that if he was going to get through. And I was actually genuinely scared for him personally. The transition that took place in him from then to now is that now he's not just a part of the group of the guy that's coming in and needing, to be lifted up. He still needs that. But the transition is taking place that now he is looking to see who is it that I can help. And the same thing is taking place for Tracy. Now, right now they have things on the pause button as she is ministering to him and nursing him. She left her job so that she could nurse him back to health. And so that's their everyday fight, but they still are a part of that group. And it's an area where they get to grow relationships. And it's wonderful because they walk in together as husband and wife. And she goes to her group, he goes to her group, and they feel lifted up, and they lift others up, and they walk out as husband and wife together. Does that mean everyone's married in the groups? Nope, there's single guys, or young guys, old guys. Does that mean everyone's married in the women's? Nope, there's young ladies, old ladies, single, whatever it might be. We all have that past stuff, but we're trying to get out of it to move to the future. And I'll tell you, ladies, you need to challenge yourself. The women that are here, they're fun, they're funny, and they're faith-filled. I'm not making that up. I dressed and dragged twice to come in. I totally made that up. So I just want to make sure we're all paying attention. But I've been to the guys group too, and to sit down with them. And I've dropped guys off at the guys group to say, hey, you're ready to go. To let the guys that are in there minister as they do. We are not a one pastor, two pastor, 5 elder church. That's not what we're about. Our focus is in every member ministry and to build those relationships that are meaningful in your life. We all work. We all get tired. We all get beat up. We understand all those things. There's not one person that doesn't make it in, even the ones that didn't do their homework that week, that doesn't make it in that week and walk out and go, oh, I am so glad that I came. And I'm so glad that I was a part. It's all about those relationships. And the relationship that God first ordained was the married relationship. And if you're struggling with it right now, I want you to know that God can rescue you. And God can rescue that. But you can only work on you. If you've got past struggles, if you've got past failures, at some point in some time you have to decide to leave those in the past. Isaiah 43 verses 18 and 19 says, hey, don't dwell there. Don't dwell in the past. Because look, I'm bringing new life to where you didn't think I could bring new life. I'm putting rivers in the desert. I'm putting paths in the wilderness. And he's already given it all. He gave it 100%. When will we give back? And for you to your spouse, ask yourself that question. Am I giving them that 100%? But first, am I giving that to God 100%? And for brothers to your sisters, and sisters to your brothers, and brothers to your brothers, and sisters to your sisters, are you giving it 100%? Is there a difference in that relationship? And then does it head outside of the home into our communities, and our schools, and our workplaces? See, God is not a religious God. Even though there's commandment after commandment, He's a relational one. And He loves you just as you are. And He's always loved you that way. Because you were fearfully and wonderfully made by Him. When we start living for Him, with Him daily. You stand, please, so we close in word of prayer.